The heat wave was oppressive, the air heavy with the threat of a storm. My phone buzzed against my desk, breaking the silence, not thunder, but the motion sensor in my storm shelter, hidden under fake turf in my backyard. I pulled up the live feed, and there she was, Diane, the HOA's self-proclaimed queen, flashlight in hand, bolt cutters dangling from her wrist, standing wide-eyed in my shelter like she'd uncovered a secret vault. Before I could process the absurdity, the shelter's door slammed shut with a mechanical hiss, biometric locks snapping into place 3 feet underground. With a thunderstorm closing in, Diane was trapped. I let out a disbelieving laugh. Diane, who'd spent months harassing me over neighborhood standards, had broken into my federally funded storm shelter. Now she was caged by her own arrogance, panicking as the skies rumbled. For a fleeting, glorious moment, I considered grabbing a beer and watching the drama unfold. The tension had been building for months. As an aerospace engineer, I'd built the shelter with every permit in place, even securing federal disaster grants. It was a government-grade fortress, invisible under the lawn, but Diane didn't care. She called it a visual nuisance, bombarding me with HOA notices despite its legality. She craved control if she hadn't approved it. It was a crime in her eyes. That morning, I'd been working at a cafe when my security app pinged. Diane, with her lackeys Tom and Emily, was sniffing around my yard. I texted neighbors about the Diane patrol, assuming it was another of her fake inspections. I never imagined she'd escalate to breaking and entering. Her first mistake was thinking dollar store bolt cutters could crack a hatch designed for F5 tornadoes. She didn't know the shelter's tamper system unlocked the door for 30 seconds before locking tight, until reset from IN's idea feature for survival, not snooping. Now Diane was learning that the hard way. Inside, her triumph turned to terror. She'd planned to snap photos of unauthorized construction for the HOA's lawyer, but the shelter wasn't a dirt hole. It was a high-tech marvel: LED lights, stocked shelves, automated systems. Her flashlight swung wildly as she realized the truth. The door's locks clicked shut, immovable. She yanked, pushed, kicked it with her sandal-clad foot. Nothing. Her shouts for Tom and Emily, waiting outside the fence, were futile. On my phone, her panic was pure theater, banging the hatch, ranting about civil rights and HOA authority. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I drove home slowly, stopping for a soda, letting her stew in her entitlement. Storm clouds thickened, rain spitting as thunder growled. This was going to be epic. Pulling into my driveway, I spotted Tom and Emily under an umbrella across the street, looking like guilty kids. They waved weakly. I ignored them, heading to the control panel disguised as a shed. Diane's voice blared through the speaker. "This is unlawful imprisonment. Release me now." I leaned into the mic, cool as ice. "You're trespassing in a federally protected facility. Stay calm, authorities are notified." Her scream could have shattered glass. I hadn't called the cops yet, but the lie was worth it for her reaction. As storm sirens wailed, I dialed the sheriff's office, reporting a break-in to a federal disaster site. The dispatcher's tone sharpened, promising deputies and a federal investigator. This wasn't an HOA spat, it was government business. Inside, Diane spiraled, pacing in circles, ignoring the water rations and oxygen systems. Her flashlight lay abandoned, her hands clawing the walls. Outside, rain lashed the street, neighbors gawking from porches, phones out. Word spread fast. Diane was in deep trouble. Tom and Emily whispered frantically, avoiding my gaze. I raised an eyebrow. They looked away, drenched and guilty. 15 minutes later, 2 sheriff's SUVs rolled up, lights cutting through the gloom. I handed Deputy Carter, a gruff veteran, a packet: permits, footage, grant papers. He skimmed it, nodding. "She broke into your federal shelter during a storm warning and got locked in." I shrugged, hiding a grin. "That's about it." He whistled, pulling up the live feed. Diane's voice screeched about expired water and calling the governor. Carter shook his head. "This one's special." The deputies tried calming her via the speaker. "Sheriff's Department, stay calm. We're getting you out." Diane's hysteria peaked, yelling about conspiracies and her civic duty. The crowd snickered. Carter overrode the LACA process I designed for emergencies, not idiots. The hatch creaked open, and Diane stumbled out, soaked, her live, love, laugh, shirt clinging pathetically. She launched into a tirade, pointing at me, but Carter stepped in. "Ma'am, you're under investigation for trespassing, tampering with emergency infrastructure, and false reports." Hands where I can see them. Her face collapsed, shock replacing fury. Cuffed and silenced, she was led to the patrol car, sandals squelching. I caught Tom and Emily trying to slip away. "Plenty of room in the shelter if you want a tour," I called. Neighbors laughed, lightning flashing for emphasis. The storm hit hard, rain turning lawns to mud. Diane, in the patrol car, glared through the window, mouthing threats drowned by the downpour. It was poetic nature reveling in her downfall. A tornado touched down 15 miles away, adding ironic weight to her crisis while a real one loomed. Carter pulled me aside. "FEMA and state officials will investigate. We'll need your footage and records." I nodded. Me documentation was airtight. Mrs. Jensen, an elderly Diane critic, marched up, saying she'd overheard Diane plotting to frame me. The deputies took her statement. Tom and Emily squirmed as they were questioned, claiming ignorance, but their silence screamed guilt. A black SUV with FEMA plates arrived. Agent Harper, a sharp woman, inspected the shelter with clinical precision, confirming tampering was a federal crime due to the grant funding. "Next time someone complains, tell them it's the safest place in town," she quipped. I laughed as the storm eased to a drizzle. Diane's charges piled up: trespassing, tampering, obstruction. The neighborhood buzzed the next morning, texts and news alerts flooding my phone. Headlines screamed, "Storm shelter bandit." Cars slowed by my house, neighbors waving or gawking. For once, I wasn't the villain. The HOA unraveled fast. Tom and Emily emailed the community, disowning Diane's rogue actions, but their emergency meeting was a bloodbath. I attended, armed with a folder of Diane's emails, fines, and group chat posts. The clubhouse was packed, tension electric. Tom stammered apologies, but residents erupted, demanding answers for years of abuse. I laid out the shelter's legality, sharing evidence of Diane's harassment. Gasps filled the room as her messages bragging about targeting homeowners sank in. The crowd voted to oust the board. Applause followed me back to my seat, a quiet victory for a community choked by fear. Diane's house went dark, a for sale sign slapped up. Her legal woes mounted federal charges, no plea deal in sight. Her lawyer's scowl became a local meme. The neighborhood bloomed, gardens sprouted, block parties sparked without HOA mandates. A barbecue became a celebration of freedom, kids racing, neighbors bonding. They unveiled a polished sign for my property. "Unauthorized entry may result in a complimentary lock-in. Enjoy your stay." A cartoon tornado chased Diane's scowl. I laughed, helping mount it by the shelter a symbol of triumph. Diane's lawsuit against the HOA flopped. Her house sold at a loss. She faded, her name a punchline. I joined an advisory committee, ensuring no new tyrant rose. One evening, watching the sunset, I felt the weight lift. This wasn't about the shelter or Diane, it was about freedom to live without petty control. The stars shone brighter, the community stronger, all because one woman's ego led her into a trap she couldn't escape. I smiled, knowing my shelter stood ready.